I was in an old building that housed senior citizens. It was subsidized housing. The high-rise structure was called Skelton Place. The name, Skelton, of course, makes one think of a skeleton. One may think, all of these old folks living here will soon be dead. Their rented bones will end up in whatever bargain basement burial ground a frugal funeral director would find. I think Tom Waits would like that. There is always a curiosity about what happens to indigent elderly bodies that have expired, but the thirst for that knowledge usually ends when a more pleasant thought is unlocked and thought about. Me, I'm a young man with a degree in geriatric social work and a job in social work. I was young. That's when teachers are so great. But, social workers, they're all kind of weird. Just, after like 40 years, I figured that. And me, the agency I work for tries its best to help mainly poor folks over 60 to keep them out of nursing homes. I get the pleasure of visiting these, by and large, wonderful human beings. I try and link them to resources like energy assistance to help them pay their heating bills, Meals on Wheels, signing up for food stamps, and I tell them, most important thing, where to go to get that cheese from the federal government.
Best cheese ever.
It's no Velveeta. Most of the people are unhealthy, not so happy, and poor. But on this day, I was visiting Carolyn and John Mooney. They live in a 7th floor, 1-bedroom apartment in Champaign, Illinois. John lets Carolyn do all the talking. Carolyn kind of chats more than talks. God blessed her with a beautiful smile, and she wears it all the time. The Mooneys used to live in a trailer in a mobile home park in Dewey, Illinois, just north of Champaign. I didn't know them when they lived there. They had nowhere to go after a fire of unknown origin had consumed their trailer. They were left with nothing. The Red Cross, this is true, the Red Cross placed them in a flea bag motel room in Rantoul, Illinois. We used to call Rantoul Rantucky. This was just a temporary resident. I worked with a woman named Skeets at the County Housing Authority to get them the unremarkable 7th floor apartment at Skelton Place. For most people, Skelton Place was a dive or a hellhole. For the Moonies, they were moving on up, like George and Louise Jefferson did on TV. Things happened fast for Carolyn and John because their housing crisis had been filmed and documented on Channel 3. They now had an apartment with a nice view of the University of Illinois campus. Carolyn seemed to remain a happy soul throughout the entire ordeal. I noted that every time I saw the toothless Carolyn, she wore the same oversized cotton smock, and her hair got oilier, is that a word? And she didn't smell very good, but her mental health was good. John was hard to read. He might be graduating into a deeper level of dementia, or maybe he just didn't want to talk to me. His eyes followed Carolyn almost all the time as if she was his angel. She walked around the apartment with his gaze. "We've never had it so good," she said. "I'm so glad," I said. Their new flat was growing with stuff. People gave them ceramic figurines. Everybody needs a couple figurines. Dated TV guides and a bed with sheets. A next door neighbor gave them 2 sets of forks, some spoons, and a utility knife. Possessions rolled in like a slow parade of Salvation Army accoutrements. That wasn't the word. But try to use it tomorrow. A donated TV appeared at their doorstep. It only got CBS. It pleased Carolyn. Before you knew it, they probably were getting... I'm not getting rough here. Before you know it, they were probably getting too much stuff. The items that no one brought them were bars of soap, shampoo, shaving cream, toothbrushes, toilet paper. I believe they didn't like to shower. Their bodies provided a malodorous odor. That was the word. Malodorous. Malodorous. Teacher, what is it?
Oh, difference. Do that one.
Malodorous?
Oh, got it. All good.
Sounds like a good name for a band, doesn't it? Anyway. I didn't think of telling a hefty 76-year-old woman that she needed to take a bath. I didn't think it was in my job description, but it probably should have been. But on this visit, John fiddled with an antique clock radio that sat on the kitchen table. I didn't know if he liked the sound of white noise, but on this day, he parked the tuner between 2 stations, and he grinned with the white noise. Carolyn said he searches for religion in the radio. She was ever so grateful for the new life she had at Skelton Place. She thought I was largely responsible for her recent happiness. She wanted to give me a hug as an expression of appreciation. I finally agreed to a sideways hug. I told the Moonies that my wife was pregnant with our first child, that my wife was pretty far along too. Further, I told them she'd be picking me up soon. Can I meet her? Asked Carolyn. Sure, I replied. The elevator ride down with Carolyn was unpleasant. She stood across from me in the same old outfit. She was anxious and fidgety. Carolyn waited in the foyer area. My wife was in our almost dead Chevy Cavalier. I knocked on the car window. There's someone inside who wants to meet you, I said to my wife, Lois. She got out of the car. This wasn't easy because her tummy was the size of a wrecking ball. Carolyn, this is Lois, I said. The ever-hugger Carolyn embraced the much shorter Lois. I think Lois unexpectedly grabbed one of Carolyn's big mama breasts in their awkward embrace. After that, Carolyn heaped a wheelbarrow full of boasts about how I had helped them. And then she looked at Lois and she said, do you know if it'll be a boy or a girl? No, said Lois. I can tell you. I'm a seer. Really? Said Carolyn. Okay, said Lois. Carolyn instructed Lois to take off her coat and twirl a couple times. You all know what a twirl is. I don't have to do that. Then my client... I wore the wrong clothes to twirl, I think. This is just a malodorous feeling. Carolyn instructed Lois to take off her coat and twirl. Then my client walked over to me and she whispered, gonna be a boy. Then she whispered something in Lois's ear. I held on to that belief that Carolyn apparently had a gift of predicting the future, and I believed her. I just knew it was going to be a boy. About 6 weeks later, I was stationed in the birthing room at Carle Hospital in Urbana. It was a tough deployment for me, but it was much worse for Lois. All I had to do was squeeze her hand, mimic breathing techniques, and not say something stupid to piss her off. It was a 24-hour ordeal for Lois. I kept the twirl Lois had made for Carolyn fresh in my mind. I was absolutely positive the kid would be a boy. I didn't picture playing baseball with my son. I pictured watching a Marx Brother movie with him. I didn't want the baby named after me. All I did was crawl on top of Lois about 9 months ago. A very romantic relationship. This wasn't supposed to be a funny story. I had yet to accomplish anything profound enough to have someone named after me. All I did was serve as a sire. Almost anyone could do that. Well, half the population anyway. The baby's head was coming out. Our little baby's body was on its way into a world that Lois and I could offer. I was watching Lois pushing. The nurse said, "One more push," and the baby was out. Dr. Turngren asked me if I wanted to cut the cord. I didn't want to, but I did, and he seemed pleased. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, I watched the nurse clean up the newborn kid, but I looked and there was nothing where a penis should have been. There was no willy. Carolyn was wrong. I couldn't believe it. Why did I place a faith in Carolyn? She wasn't a real clairvoyant. I felt stupid. We were blessed with a healthy little girl. Her name was Emily. I named her after Bob Newhart's wife on that TV show. Suzanne Plachette. I couldn't imagine not having a daughter. But a few weeks later, before I left for work, I told Lois I was going to see that stinky woman at Skelton Place that she had met a couple months ago. Make sure you let her know that she was right about the baby being a girl, said Lois. She told me it was going to be a boy, I said. Well, she whispered to me that it was going to be a girl, said Lois. Really, I asked. Really, she said. So I wondered if this was what Carolyn did. To the wife, a girl, to the husband, a boy. That way, she was always right. I guess keeping a positive attitude through a fire, through a stay at a yucky motel, through the loss of all her stuff and her having to supervise her husband's dementia day after day after day. I'm winding up. I thought, maybe Carolyn did have a bit of magic in her. So thank you.